This is lesson 29, geotrig day 2. And we all have copies of this. We all just went through a quick 2-minute practice run. I highly suggest that you practice it some more. But why is it important that we have the unit circle? Because if you remember from yesterday, we built it just with the reference triangles, right? So therefore, if you know your reference triangles, do you really need the unit circle? No, not really. But here's the thing, guys. If I just ask you, hey, what's the sine of 225? You guys should be able to look there and say, sine of 225 is what? Negative square root of 2 over 2. Why? Here's 225. There's the terminal point. It's always cosine, comma, sine. There's negative square root of 2 over 2. If I asked you, hey, what's the cosine of 330? You go to 330. You go to the x value. It's square root of 3 over 2. You don't have to think much. If I use my reference triangles, I would have to say, hey, 330 is the same thing as cosine of 30, and that has to be positive because it's in the fourth quadrant, and cosine's positive. And then, what's the cosine of 30? Oh, that's square root of 3 over 2. Those are the types of things you'd have to do if you're using your reference triangles. So, let's put this to practice. We did that, we did that. Now, we just have to do these. Can you evaluate, draw your triangles if necessary? No. Use your reference triangles. Or your unit circles, sorry. Unit circles, possibly the ones you made already. I know we don't have an official copy of this, like an official nice copy yet. But I don't know if you necessarily need that for this. Okay, guys. So we're looking at our unit circle here. All we have to do is evaluate, hey, what is 3 times the tangent of 180? We've already done this, I think, for like using our reference triangles, right? We evaluated sine of 30 before, or 2 times the sine of 30, stuff like that. And so now we're going to use the quadrantal angles in these. Notice most of them are. And we're going to start to chain a couple of them together. So, here's the cool thing. I want to know tangent of 180. 3 times the tangent of 180. To do this, I will not mess with 3, because 3 is 3, but I'm going to change tangent. Either I'm going to fill it in with a value of tangent, or what tangent of 180 equals. Because tangent is not on our unit circle. Tangent is actually made up of sines and cosines. What was that again? Sine over cosine. So it's the same as sine of 180 over cosine of 180. At this point, I can use my unit circle. I can say, wait a minute, that's the same thing as 3 times sine of 180. So wait, let's go back. There's 180. Sine is the y value. Cosine is the x value. So it'd be 0 over negative 1. And what, wait, 0 divided by negative 1? Times 3? 0. Notice I say exact answers only. I do not want you using your calculator right up there. Put no calculators allowed. Yes, and I think that was on our first slide from yesterday. It's cosine, comma, sine. Cosine's x, sine is y. So, going to the next one. Hey, sine of 270. 270's on my unit circle, and so is sine. So I'm going to take out sine of 270 and place its value in there. What is the value of...
-1 over 0.
No, no, no.
Oh,
What is sine of 270?
I was doing a different one.
You were doing tangent of 270.
Yeah, well, because I was doing...
Right? The sine value at 270 is? -1.
-1.
And so the answer is? -4. Oh wait, 270 comes back up in the next one. Tangent of 270. 3 times sine of theta, or not theta, but 270 in this case, over cosine of 270. What is the sine of 270 again? So it's -1 over 0. Can you divide by 0? So therefore, it's not 0. It's undefined, guys. It's 3 times an undefined is undefined. This part right here makes you so you cannot do this problem. Now, is it any different if I start to chain them all together? No. Now, here's the thing. Some of the times it's going to be best to think of your reference triangles, reference angles. Sometimes it's better to use the unit circle, like the sine of -135. If you're unsure of where an angle lies, like which quadrant, because all students take calculus, graph it. Draw a picture to go with it, right? Where is -135? If it's a negative angle, you start at the positive x-axis and you go downwards. There's 135, a -135. Now, in that quadrant, sine happens to be negative, and it has a reference angle of 45. So guess what, guys? Sine of -135 is the same thing as a negative of sine 45. Do you guys remember how to do that? You guys agree with this? Sine of -135 is in the third quadrant, which sine is negative, and it references 45 degrees in the first quadrant, which is always positive, so therefore I have to put the negative up front, and it's the same value. With no calculators, you go to unit circle, and you can say, hey, sine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. That's only half of it here. We now have to do plus 3 square root 2 times cosine of 180. Oh, that's just -1. So then it's plus 3 square root 2. And of course, if I wanted to really, truly finish this, I need to write that as one fraction. This has a 2 as a denominator. This one has a... Well, it's a negative square root of 2 over 2. But the negative can be on top. What's the denominator of this thing? Isn't it 1? There's nothing there. And so, to get those to be the same, I have to multiply by 2 over 2. So, I get negative square root of 2 over 2 plus 6 square root of 2 over 2. If I have negative square root of 2 plus 6 square root of 2's, you have -1 of them and you add 6 of them. It's 5 of them, and them are square root of 2. So 5 square root of 2's over 2. brought to my attention, I made a mistake. The mistake was the fact that this -1 times a positive would actually make a negative. And so this should be a negative here, which makes this negative. So it's a -7. One last problem that I want to do before you guys get your homework. I want you guys to evaluate this string of trig functions. Please do so. Okay, so here we go. If I take cosine of 60, I don't like cosine of 60, I'll change that to using unit circle. 60 cosines the x, which is? Square root of 1 over 2. We don't like square root of 1, so we actually have changed that to 1 over 2, 1/2. Minus square root of 3. Go to 240. Sine of 240. Go to unit circle, go to 240, look at the y value.
The square root of 3 over 2. Negative square root.
Ooh, it's a negative square root of 3 over 2. And then we go to 315. 315, take the tangent. Wait a minute, I don't like that, so I'm going to change that to sine of 315 over the cosine of 315. Going back, that becomes a 1, because they cancel. Negative, negative makes a
Positive.
square root of 3 times square root of 3. So it's 3 over 2 plus, what's the sine of 315?
Sine of 315.
Negative square root of 2 over 2 over square root of 2 over 2. Actually, that ends up being not 1, but -1. So you get 1 plus 3/2 minus 1, which ends up being 3/2. Done. Homework is lesson 29, page 204, 17 through 23, plus practice for the unit circle speed test. Have a great weekend.